Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. I have a strange show for you today. I have had to break up some of my guests. Usually I have the guests for an hour. Today I kind of have to break it up, and you're going to see me doing this a lot, putting it in parts. So the first part is going to be me and something I have been trying to explain to you forever, which is synchronicities. Oh, well anyways, here, let me tell you this too. Come see me in the Bellingham, Washington. I'm going to be there March 7th, I think it is. They only have one theater. If you live around there, that's it. You can see me there. It's going to be a fun show because literally, Tommy, my demonologist, will be there. His Reiki master wife will be there. Derek Condit, that did the Shungite. Somebody yelled at me about how I pronounced it. Episode about 5G. And that was the greatest episode. And then also, I believe my psychic tea guy is going to be there. So there is going to be a lot of energy in that theater. And also, if it is February 21st, you can come see me next week at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club. And also you can see me May in Miami. Miami people, I'm coming there and I'm doing the whole tarot show. That's a whole hour of stand-up with me and then sitting and reading tarot cards from the audience. And it will be very fun. So, I think that's it. Oh, Waco, Texas has been added for June, I believe. There's more dates in there. You'll see me. I'm going to be in upstate New York, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I got to get better about promotion. Aren't I terrible? So I've been sitting on this. So we're going to go over synchronicities. Then parts 2 and 3 are, my friend KD, who is from Cal-Para, that's the team that I investigate with. She, is the creator and the lead investigator and all that. And those are the folks that I go with. If you call Cal-Para and you have trouble in your house, you might get me. You might not, because sometimes I can't make it. But that's my favorite team, and so KD is going to come and tell us a bunch of her stories, which are fantastic. And then after KD, I might start adding a little comedy sort of bonus to the end of these, because here's what happened. This that I'm going to tell you about with synchronicities is very interesting. And I took all my notes. I've watched 17 YouTube things. I put it all together, and I didn't look at my notes. And my friend Brian Kiley was over. Brian Kiley, a monologue writer for Conan O'Brien, has zero interest in the paranormal or metaphysical or synchronicities. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try and go over it with him, and he can ask any questions or fill in the blanks. But I didn't look at my notes. It was kind of a disaster, but I sent it to April. You'll hear her on her ad, April Readings. And I said, what do you think of this? And she said, it makes no sense whatsoever, but it's comedy gold. You must put it up. So the first part of this is going to be the real way it should be done. And the second part of it is going to be me and Brian Kiley trying to figure it out half-assed. And it should be pretty funny. So the first thing I want to talk about was synchronicities. So you guys a lot of people ask me about this. They ask me about, I always see 1111. I always see numbers, all kinds of synchronicities. That song comes on the radio. So I looked it up, and first of all, there's a guy named Tom Montauk, and you all need to follow him on YouTube. He has some music. That's not what I want you to follow. He is a genius talking about timelines and all this other stuff. And I saw a whole bunch of videos, and they all kind of had the same thing, that there's 7 synchronicities. Some people said there were 5. Some people said there were 5 and 1 you should watch out for. But I kind of like his thing on there being 7. So, I watched his and a bunch of other stuff. Go see him. It's Tom Montauk. He explains it better than ever. I'm going to give it a little choppy chop here and see what I can do with it. So basically, this is all that people are always asking me about that. I see the same number. I see the same number and stuff like that. So quantum physics describe synchronicities as strange coincidences that you were meant to notice. They're two events that really aren't related, but they somehow, with the metaphysical help, they come together. A little bit of this, I'm going to backtrack, is you hear Jessa and I talking about this all the time, and you hear me talking about it on the Mandela effect. That we have different timelines. In other words, people think reality is just one. We're just going one way. It's all one thing. It's one thing after another. It's predetermined. Whatever you think, you have to be open to timelines and time being linear, okay, going sideways instead of going just forward and passing to kind of understand this. Also, I'm going to do a very bad analogy about how the matrix works as this goes on. But you have to think that we are kind of like a computer program. In other words, Google has a voodoo doll of you. Google or Amazon or whatever, they have they're calculating all the things that you do. They're looking at all the things that Karen buys, all the crazy things that Karen buys, and they're putting them in this voodoo doll sort of computer program. And the voodoo doll tells them, well, probably Karen is going to need curtains, or she's going to need this, or it's actually pretty amazing how much they have replicated you from these programs. So keep that in mind. That's sort of what the basis of synchronicities can be. So the first one of the 7, the first one is called a precursor sync. This is the side of a side effect of sort of an impending instability in your timeline. So you're on this sort of computer program. Karen does the same thing every day. She gets up, she rides her bike to yoga. She goes to yoga, comes home, does her tarot readings, does a show at night. That's Karen's voodoo doll. She knows that's happening. So one day I start to get all these signs that something is different. This could be anything. I got 2 flat tires. I put air in them. I get another flat tire. My helmet snap breaks. Something kind of warning me. Just an interesting story about this. It's really when an upcoming event is going to mess up your timeline. So it's going to knock you off that computer program of going off. So it shows us that the future is unstable. When the future is unstable, so is the present. Okay. A good story that goes with this is all the therapists in New York City said they were getting phone calls from clients they hadn't heard from in years before 9/11, because everybody was sort of felt this thing coming in their timeline. Everyone was all of a sudden very anxious, couldn't understand why they were so upset. It was because this event of 9/11 was so unstable on their timeline that they actually were sort of feeling the vibration before that. You'll hear me explain that again poorly to Brian later. So when there is something that is coming up that's unstable, you will get a precursor sync that just gives you a little warning. Okay, so number 2 is deviation syncs. Deviation syncs is when you suddenly deviate from the program. So we're talking, say we're all mankind is going their little computer program. I use the analogy of a piece of fabric. So everybody's their piece of fabric, weaving or doing exactly what they're supposed to. One piece of fabric breaks off. That is suddenly noticed. That is the most notable one. Deviation syncs happen when you get off your regular path. So every day I go to yoga, I go do my readings, I go out. One day I get up and I go, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to Montana. I always wanted to go Montana, just out of nowhere. Everyone goes, what, Karen? We could rely on her every day. She just took off and went to Montana. That throws the whole fabric off. That is a deviation sync. When you do something like that, you sort of change determinism. This is where free will really comes in. And this is where you kind of wake up the matrix here. In improbabilities then will come in clusters. So in other words, my life was just this one path, this one fabric that was going all one way. And all of a sudden I came in with a scissor or a sewing machine and started to sew another way. That means that my future is sort of, it's on a different timeline. It's sort of going off a little bit. So all of a sudden there'll be a lot of these deviation sinks that'll come in clusters. What's interesting about this is that is you're out of the regular people timeline. So also, this can happen, a lot of you know, probably have had times in your life, it can happen when someone outside of our 3D world, this could be someone from the paranormal, this could be an angel, could be an alien, could be a demon, whatever, somebody else can throw in a deviation sink into your life. This is an event that changes everything. All right, sends you down another road. Your house burns down. Whoa, there's one. You got to go somewhere else. So these are, but these will start to come one at a time. They will come one after another. They're also sort of explain why once you've sort of made that off your regular path and you become aware, like you guys are kind of woke because you're kind of like, yeah, there's something different going on than just the reality of everyday life. You sort of become other beings, the ones I just explained, angels, demons, aliens, all those, they become very aware of you. Okay. Then they're seeing someone is not following the pattern. Someone's not on the program. And people like this can sometimes get a lot of paranormal activity, or people that go looking for paranormal activity can sort of make themselves the same thing. They're off the regular path. So, you can sort of, that's why people that actually look for the paranormal actually have more paranormal activity around them usually. So, those are deviations sinks. The next one are called expansion sinks. And expansion sinks are sort of the universe giving you a high five. This is when you become enlightened or you have significant spiritual growth. The good analogy here is the Matrix. Which pill do you want to take? Do you want to go back to sleep, the red pill or the blue pill? I can't remember which one was which. But you know me, I take them all. So that would be very interesting. That would be my matrix. I took all of them. But this is sort of the universe. Some people have a near-death experience that changes their life. Listen to Jess's near-death experience. This sort of changes everything. And sometimes it really is from the universe. They tend to be very symbolic, so they're not the obvious ones. They can come in dreams. They can be represented in tarot cards, in the archetype of tarot cards. So these ones need a little bit of decoding, or it may be something like have you ever asked someone about a dream? A friend of mine asked me, she had been in a car accident in 2019 and she broke both of her legs because somebody hit her. And she was, her legs had to heal and then they healed wrong. So they had to be broken. And she called me and she said, I keep having this dream that I'm trying to get on a plane and I'm in seat 19 and I can't find the seat. And what does that mean? And I said, well, I think that means you think you missed 2019. And she was like, yes. But that was sort of a good message of an expansion sink. And it also, to me, would mean I know that that was a terrible thing that happened to you, but that somehow was supposed to happen. There was a message in that, or you were supposed to slow down or something like that. So those kind of sinks need a little decoding. The next ones are called message sinks. These are a lot of, people see these. This is a lot of the 1111, I feel like. This is more that than anything else. I'm seeing 11s everywhere. I'm seeing 111. Every time I look at the clock, it's 333. They can be anything. Somebody's like, I always find feathers. Why do I find strange feathers? Whatever these messages are. These are signs and omens. They are kind of blatant, but they need to be decoded. You need to figure out what's going on with them. They can be bad signs too. It's like I drive a Versa. If I see 3 different Versas that have gotten into car accidents, that might be a message sink that I should put on my glasses when I drive, which I probably should anyways. So message sinks are a little different. And a lot of you probably know you have something like, oh, whenever I see a penny or something like that, whenever I see something like that, Well, there was a scary noise in my apartment. Sorry. There's a lot of scary noises in my apartment. I keep cleansing it, but and sometimes the noises are outside and I think they're scary and they're just things outside the window. But anyways, you don't need to know about that. So, these signs come almost in immediate forms of improbabilities. So, watch for these. They can be positive or negative, but these are, it's not that they don't need decoding, but usually everybody knows their own message syncs. If you want to figure out what they mean, keep a note or make a log that says, oh, every time I see a Versa on fire, I'm texting in my car, or every time I see a feather, I run into an old friend, or whatever it is. But see if you can keep a log on what happened before and what happened after, and then you can kind of figure out these messages yourself. These ones can also come in dreams too, but these are the ones I think people see the most or talk about the most. Why do I always see pigs? Well, you live on a farm. Next one is the easiest. It's called manifestation syncs. This happens to me a lot. And this is sort of something that bargains on that line of manifestation, law of attraction, or psychic ability. Which one is it? So this is when something you subconsciously wish for happens. And it doesn't even have to be something you wish for. This can be when you're thinking about a song from the 60s and all of a sudden it comes on the radio. Or this is a little bit about thinking of someone and then they call you. And it's sort of your subconscious. It usually happens when you're in a relaxed state, when you're in a manifestation state, and you're thinking about it a lot. Like if you could have a crush on a movie star and then just be thinking about them or something like that. And all of a sudden you go, everywhere you go, there's a new movie with that person in it. And it's kind of like it happens in the same timeline. So synchronicities are pretty manifestation synchronicities are pretty easy. The thing about them is, did you make it happen, or did you kind of psychically get that message before? I think that happens a lot when I read tarot. Because a lot of times ladies that want to have babies come to me and they're like, we haven't been able to get pregnant and it's been a long time. And I will have the card right there that says, oh no, there's no problem here. You're going to have a baby. And then I'll get a phone call a month later. I'm pregnant. I can't believe it. And I always wonder if they were psychic and they came to me sort of knowing that I would say, yes, you are, or if it was the opposite, that I sort of gave them that manifestation. But either way, that's a manifestation sync. Okay, so the next ones are called artificial syncs. These are things that are too good to be true. You want to look out for these. This is the one probably that it was explained differently quite a few times, because the way I like it explained is where something from the outside, and I'm going to say negative paranormal, doesn't have to be a demon, just something negative, is sort of baiting you or setting you up for something to happen. And the thing that sometimes you can tell from these is they're a little different in that they're very, very bold. They're not hidden at all. I feel like I'm having one of these now where I'm continually getting calls for paranormal shows. And I am not sure if I want to be on a paranormal show. And in fact, I sort of went down this line before, but I realized if I can't be funny, I don't want to sit in a dark place with unfunny people. If I want to do it, I want to do it with fun and funny, and nobody in TV wants that. But I seem to be getting like baiting, you want to get on this paranormal show? Look, you got to go to these people for this paranormal show. So I'm a little confused right now if that's an artificial sync or a regular omen or something, opportunity sync, which we'll get to next. So an artificial sync is really someone or something that is pretty obviously directing you somewhere when your intuition is saying, no, don't do it. These syncs can actually be staged to purposely deceive you. These have a lot to do with dark entities might be using telepathy, or like I just said, they're really usually obvious. So you have to learn the difference and look inside your heart and say, what does this mean? Okay, and the last one is called opportunity sync, which is almost the exact opposite of the artificial sink. This is when events are arranged to help your life or to put you in a good spot. These are always the best stories, and you can see when people tell them the light in their eyes. It's like the story I've told a million times, probably on this podcast, about how I got my little dog Courage. I went to the pound, which I don't know how I did that. I don't think I could ever do that again, but I didn't really know dogs. You know, if you're not a dog owner, you don't know dogs. If you have a dog, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know if I could go back in the pound and pick one again because it would tear my heart out. So I went in and I saw Courage. And there he was. He was a little guy, teeny guy, couldn't get into the food dish, all this stuff. And so the guy at the pound said, well, the little ones get auctioned off because they go for thousands of dollars. So you want to be here Sunday at noon and bid on this dog. And I was like, thousands of dollars. I can't afford that. And I left. So 2 days later, I just happened to be driving by that same pound, and I thought, I'm going to go look at that little dog again. And I went in, and there he was, and I got to pet him, put my finger through the cage, and he was so sad and worried. And I said to the lady, so that one's going to go for a lot, right? And I should come Sunday at noon. And she said, I don't know why that guy told you noon. That auction is at 11. So Sunday I showed up at 11. There were 3 of us. There was a family that should have never had a small dog because they had all these terrible kids. There was an older lady with 1 kid, and there was me. And the bidding started, and the lady with the family left early. They left at like $300. The lady said 500. I said 550, and she stormed out. The lady processes all the paperwork, slides my credit card, opens the door. There is a line of about 50 people screaming. That guy said the Papillon went on auction at noon. And so that is an opportunity sink. That Courage was supposed to be with me. That was how it happened. It was that opportunity that took me by that pound one more time to go in and ask. So those are always, and you can even tell by the way I tell that story, these come across as somebody might be talking about a lucky break. You can't believe that happened, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So opportunity sinks are really positive. They're sort of like the universe just giving you a gimme. So, all right, everybody. So we're going to get to my interview with KD. KD is fabulous. You're going to love her. And then after, it's going to sound like I ended the podcast. I'm going to do my regular out, but I'm going to have the fabulous Mike Flynn tag on me and Brian Kiley, totally decimating all the information I just gave you. We'll be right back. From my podcast series, Conversations with April Readings is here. How are you, lady?
Hi, Paranormal Karen.
How would you describe what you do?
I'm a psychic medium, animal communicator. I'm also clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsensory.
And clairfun. Don't ever forget that. You're always fun. I get readings from you all the time. I call you when I'm in a pinch. What can someone who is getting their first time reading expect?
I love to start with what I call your psychic inbox, and that's where we get to see spirit messages, energetic pictures, and any information that's actually important for you to know about today that you might not even ask about. It's what brings you to the reading, and it also creates a context for the rest of your reading.
And then
you get to ask any and all specific or general questions about any area or relationship in your life, and we zoom in on that.
That's my favorite part because you are so specific and one of the most accurate readers I've ever been to.
Thank you.
AprilReadings.com is where anyone can book a reading.
Yes.
And then at April Readings on Instagram.
Yes, definitely follow, like, and share. And my commitment is really that it's fun and that people leave energized and hopefully with a little bit of healing.
And a lot of inspiration.
Thank you, Karen.
Folks, I think it's that ad where the guy says Del Secchi's the smartest man in the world or whoever, and he says, I don't drink beer, but when I do, I drink Del Secchi's. Well, I don't investigate homes, but when I do it with Cal-Para. And today with me is what should I call you, KD? You're the originator, you're the creator. What's a good title?
Founder, lead investigator.
Founder, lead investigator. KD and I have been friends for years. KD, how are you today?
I'm doing awesome.
And I should say full KD Forman, who was here in California, and that's where you created Cal-Para and your new group as you moved to Arizona called my favorite name ever, ParaZona.
Yeah, that was actually, I wish I had a brain like that. That was a team member that suggested it. And I had to make sure that wasn't taken. And by golly, there it was, ready for me to use.
Oh, that's great. So, KD, tell me about your story about how you got into the paranormal.
Okay, when I was 10 through 15, I started having little psychic dreams and visions, seeing things that were strange. And in my day, the only thing on TV was Twilight Zone or a Frankenstein movie, so not a lot of reference to know what was going on.
Right.
But I ended up babysitting at a house in Redlands, California, which is now famous for being a Victorian-looking home and possibly haunted. At the time, it was just my parents' friends lived there. And so I babysat there from age like 15 to 18. And that house is haunted. All kinds of crazy things happened.
Now, were they dangerous things or just weird things?
Well, when you're 15 and 16, they're technically, as an adult, I'm going to tell you they're weird. Back then, I was afraid, because your mind goes in crazy places when you're home. And I'll share some of the stories that were, kind of strange. We had the opportunity to go back. Cal-Para went there a few years later, I should say a few years ago, and investigate it. So it was really interesting to come back there, 20 plus years later, and it's still haunted. It's a new owner. She has her own stories. And that's when it got even creepier, because now I've got the equipment. A few psychics are on board. So I feel like it was a better investigation than when I'm 15 and kind of crouched in the kitchen hoping that all this weird stuff goes away.
Yeah. What was was it things moving? Was it noises? Was it things you saw? What happened in the house?
Well, when I was babysitting, the house was built like in 1880 and had furniture that matched that timepiece, and it also had electrical equipment that matched that. So upstairs was a player piano. You have to put in a roll and turn it on, and it will begin to play the music like those old-fashioned pianos. And the little 3-year-old and 4-year-old boy wanted me to put the music in and make it work, and we couldn't find the music anywhere, gave up. And I put them to bed. About an hour later, I hear the piano going, and I thought, oh, those little kids. And I went upstairs, and they were asleep in their room. But down the hallway, the piano is playing.
The piano is having a blast. Yeah. Oh, my God. That is creepy.
So I go in the room. Of course, immediately it stops, straight out of the movies. And I went over there to see, well, what role did they put in there? And there was no paper music in there. It was empty still.
Wow.
And it really cannot physically play songs unless that piece of paper with the holes punched through it is rolling through the piano. So that right there was,
somebody
freaky.
was playing it. Yeah, that's enough right there. I'm done. So why did you go back? How much was this worth? Were they paying?
How much were they paying me, huh?
Oh, no. Was this the story of the that you would get locked out too sometimes?
I don't remember being locked out of there. They did have this machine. They had 6 doors to the house. The house is so large. There's a front door, back door, then a north, south, east, and west door. All are, basically doors that go outside. And each one had a doorbell. And there's a machine in the middle of the house with a little arrow. And every time someone rings the bell, it generates electricity through the wires and makes the arrow flip to the one that just rang. So you can say, I'm not going to waste my time going around the whole house. Oh, okay, they're over at the north door. I will go there. So the only way the arrow can move is if another bell rings, and then it's going to flip over to a new, point over to the east door or the back door or whatever. But someone rang the bell. I went and looked. It's at front door. Okay. Went up there. No one there. Came back and looked, making sure I made it right. And it said west door. And I thought, geez, how did I make that mistake? And how did it move if no one's ring the doorbell? And I went to the west door, no one there. Then I heard the bell ring, came back, and it says something like north door. Okay, I went over to the north door, no one there. Came back and looked, bell had not rung, and it's back on the front door. And I thought, I'm not answering the door. I'm not going there. I could care less who's here,
Right.
So why did I keep going back? I think because as a teenager, you're looking for the cash,
Yes. And, there is something thrilling about that. And as much as it may scare us, we're still in this field.
Right.
It's weird that I'm sure it's such a big door, it needed a big place, it needed 4 doors. But what's interesting to me is that is interesting feng shui. If that a north, south, east, west door, like that's almost like, when they set up a spell or something. Do you know the history of that house or why it was so haunted?
The history is a man built it. He built ships in the East Coast, came out to beautiful California for better weather, built the house for his wife. And then I don't believe they lived there very long at all. Health issues, turn of the century. And then I believe there's a rumor that she died and he left and he committed suicide elsewhere. Those rumors tend to follow a lot of those houses, so I'd have to go back and review and make sure that's connected. But I do believe that's the story. So, of course, people are going to go there and think that he's there or she's there. But actually, we were in the attic with, years later with the spirit box, psychics, and asking who is it, who's here. And we got very clear, get out. My name is Ray. Get out. I'm Ray. So whoever Ray is pretty upset with the switching of traffic. He doesn't like new homeowners to sell it or do what you can. He wants it all to stay the same. When we were in the cellar, there was a creepy doll stuffed over in the corner, forgotten. And of course, the doll took a leap off the shelf for no reason while we were down there. And I had a pendulum, and I have never seen a pendulum swirl in a circle as roughly as that one did. It almost was trying to get out of my hands.
Wow.
It was an intense amount of energy. And so that was kind of like, do I want to continue to hold the pendulum here?
Right.
John Zaffis says you're pretty much channeling their energy through your body to that pendulum. And so it's going to put you in a stronger connection with the spirit. So you want to make sure, what kind of spirit am I channeling here,
Yeah, that's interesting that he says that about the pendulum, because I do know people that have had really bad experiences with a pendulum. In fact, with a jinn coming through a pendulum and getting very attached to the person.
Right. And so he seems to know what he's talking about. And I just decided after he made that suggestion, I retired my pendulum. I still have it. I still tell it it's my buddy. It likes to be called my buddy. I don't know why. But he sits in his little bag, and I don't get him out that often at all anymore after that experience. I just cannot, being a medium myself, I just cannot take a chance that something negative is like, oh, okay, let me go route through you and attach to you. So yeah, that house.
That was your start. And it's interesting that those places, I had a friend that built his own house, and he still has, we don't know what settles in there. We don't know, I have friends at native paranormal seekers, and they talk about the layers of the land. Like, we have no idea.
Yeah.
And, but you had a fabulous episode of, a haunting, which is, they really do a great job. And you really, tell us about that, because that's a pretty intense story.
Yeah, I am very glad that particular showing was about 95% accurate, because I have seen other shows where I know or I assume it's about 50% correct and 50% entertainment. But they did a great job on that one. We got a call from a home in Hemet, California. Daughter had made a homemade Ouija board with her girlfriend because the girlfriend's boyfriend had passed away, so they wanted to contact him, and they started getting really scary messages through their homemade Ouija board. And then, of course, things got real strange in their house. The mother was a manicurist and had 30 bottles of nail polish in her house, and she would wake up every morning and there would be nail polish splashed across her wall. Then it started to be triangles. She would wake up and there'd be 3 or 4, green triangles and orange triangles, and the next day pink triangles. And these spirits were getting into her nail polish and splashing it on the wall like a third grader's attempt at drawing. Did you think of anything as the triangle of a symbol, as any kind of symbol? Our teammate Alfred was talking about mocking 3 sides, the number 3, and
Father, Son,
seeing
Holy
it.
Ghost.
He does a lot of research, and he has shared with us a lot of what he's learned, kind of our information guy, and he saw it as an attempt to continually throw 3 at us. Now, also, something invisible took a fingernail type object and carved into the wall, sort of a triangle, but it started to look more like D, like a capital D. And then the girl that was 16 got a scratch on her back that looked like a capital D. And I'm thinking, now, what demon goes around and scratches D,
Right.
E, So I'm not so sure if it was just a triangle that was rounded or it was an actual D, because we try to make sense out of what we're seeing.
And actually, even though it's negative, I actually kind of think demons are quite sophisticated, and they either would come up with a name, they would have a particular name of the demon, and I don't think
symbol.
And their penmanship is great. They don't have trouble.
Yeah, this was like a third grader attempting to do a capital D or a triangle. Yeah, this was sloppy. This was lower level energy, maybe not. Maybe they weren't the top negative, but they were struggling, that's for sure.
They were sort of state
when I got
school.
in the home,
They were
the homeowner starts telling me that she gets angry all the time for no reason. She gets sad all the time. It's out of control. And as she's telling me, I began to be taken over by whatever negative energy is in there, and it's trying to take over my thoughts and my physical actions, and it's telling me, choke her, kill her, choke her, and shut her up, basically. And
wait, is that bad? Because I hear that every day.
Yeah.
I hear that about my neighbor every day. Choke her. No.
Well, now if you act on it, that can be bad. Okay. I've been jumped 3 times, and I have to say that was the worst one. The first 2, I was able to sort of shake it out rather quickly, even though the first time I didn't quite know what was going on. The second time I recognized it. This third time was this home, and it was a strong enough control that it was taking everything in my willpower to push out this energy. Again, we're talking about this channeling business. When I've got my little antennas out and I'm doing psychic mediumship type readings, I'm vulnerable no matter how much protection I think I have.
Right.
There's always a chance something stronger than you, you know. And this thing was
that's a great lesson. That's a great lesson, because I see a lot of people that call themselves demon hunters and stuff. And one of the strongest channels I know, named Diet, that I did an episode with her, she said that she was working with someone and she acknowledged that she saw a demon was with the person and she had an epileptic seizure. So always know the power that they have is important.
Yes. And I guess don't plunge forward too, because knowing what you know, I don't have to be the hero. I almost packed the crew up at that moment and left these people high and dry, which is not our style, is not what I want to be known for. And it's not personally who I am. You know, if I'm there to help, I'm going to help. But usually, you know, the group goes out, we're running into grandma, you know, some little old lady spirit, and everybody's all fine with it, and we've got the whole thing under control. This is out of control. And this is, I'm not going to get into a battle of control and will with something that's negative. I'm going to shake it or remove myself. You know, it's one or the other. I'm not staying if I don't have a sense of control over myself.
Right. I had a case where I did have to leave the person, and at some point, and you know, Thomas Durant, he's my go-to guy, and yeah, and he would say, you know, sometimes that's their karma or their, you know what I mean? Like there was the time that I had it, there was something going on in the house that shouldn't have been going on, but they were okay with it. And it was a little triangle where it was like, sometimes he said, sometimes you have to say to people, I can't help you. And they have to do it themselves.
Right. And there have been some homes that have contacted us where I have said, I will give you a list of things to try, but I do not think this is either over our pay grade, or I really don't think it's something that needs to come into your home for. I think you can actually do this. Tommy Durant has lifted us up from who we were to who we are because of all the classes we've taken from him, and has given us increased knowledge. You can never stop learning. You can't go into it and say, I know now, you know. Right. And things shift, things change, and you think you've met every kind of spirit out there, and then you walk in that next house and it's got something crazy going on.
Yeah, yeah. I just finished a book on the Skinwalker Ranch, and now I'm afraid of everything. Okay, so you were hearing, you know what? Hang on one second. Let me take a break here, and then we're going to find out what KD does when she gets the message, choke her. Hang on, folks. We'll be right back. We all live busy lives. In fact, when I'm not podcasting, ghost hunting, performing stand-up comedy, or reading tarot for my clients, I'm trying to catch my breath and de-stress. All that on the go can really play havoc with your sleep and impact your health. That's why I'm so crazy about the relaxing benefits of CBD oil. But I care about what I put into my body, so I only look for the best. And that's how I found Zion Medicinals. The company was founded by Brian Caruso, who sought a natural pharmacy-grade solution for his wife's pain and insomnia. Zion Medicinals sources high-quality, healthcare-grade, premium hemp oil direct from an organic farm in Colorado, so you consistently get the best product every single time. The oils are full spectrum too, not CBD isolate, which means that every bottle contains all of the plant's naturally occurring compounds, including cannabinoids, flavonoids, and oils for a superior product. Every bottle is third-party tested to ensure it's pure and potent too. To get your Zen with Zion, check them out online at zionmedicinals.com. Tell them I sent you and use coupon code Karen20 for 20% off your first order. That's capital K, small AREN 20. Tell them Karen sent you. All right, KD. So we're at that point where you're hearing choke her, and then what happens?
Well, it's a willpower thing. I just have to recognize it. I know these are not my emotions. I know I'm really not looking through my eyes anymore.
Pardon the police going by if people can hear that on the podcast.
They're out to get me.
They are. Okay, go ahead.
It's a point where you realize these are not my thoughts. I am unable to control my thoughts. My thoughts are physically trying to get my body to move forward and lunge at this poor lady. Can you imagine having an investigator in your home and then they lunge at you? So I told her I need to take a break just a moment. And I just cut her off because it was sort of that threshold moment that if I did not get out of her home, it was going to go to a place where I may not be able to control it. So I told Alfred, my informed team member who was there, to step outside with me and explain what I was going on and stuff. And then that's when he started explaining he was pretty sure the 3-sided objects scratched on the wall and painted on the wall were a sign of something a little more negative than we were used to. And so stepping outside and away from the house, it cleared my house. I said my prayer of protection. I re-protected myself. And I thought, okay, we'll give it another shot, do the best we can, and hopefully, move forward. So the TV shows showed us there maybe a half hour to an hour. We were there about 3 hours, but they have to edit that down. But all in all, that was one location. They just were not able to get rid of whatever, and they ended up moving out. Yeah. And I gave them every possible remedy that we have learned through the years, and they work most places, but not at this place. So, the poor new people that moved in to the location, that's what always gets me. You watch a TV show and someone says, you have to move out and you have to sell your house. And I'm thinking, how do you sell your house knowing that the new people are going to be...
Right. Well, you know what, too? Hold on, KD just hung up on me, or the ghosts just hung up on me, but I'm going to keep recording. Hang on. All right, here we go.
Hi, this is the Forman house.
Oh, goodness. Hold on. Let me get her back. Hold on. Okay, so we're back. So everybody heard the phone hang up, and I just spent 5 minutes, and I'm leaving that in case it was a spirit. Who knows? But so this is what's odd. So KD, you're back on your cell phone, right?
Yeah. Every time I talk about that story, that particular negative energy does not like their story told.
Oh.
When I gave a seminar at a Gettysburg Paranormal Conference, right in the middle of discussing different things people might come up against, we were on that particular house and that particular story, and that negative thing reached across all the way to Gettysburg and informed me at that very moment while I was on stage, stop talking about my story.
Really? You heard that in your mind?
Yep.
Oh, all right. Well, I think we kind of finished that. What we were talking about, we were talking about, I totally believe that. I believe that when we create a connection to something, that connection is always there.
No, don't say that.
Well, it doesn't have to be active, but it's always there.
Yeah. I think I've been cautious with it ever since, and I've tried to be courteous and respectful and leave that be. And so it's interesting that occasionally there's always something a little crazy like a phone disconnecting whenever I'm discussing that. That's happened to me many times.
Right. Yeah. You know, I always thought we were talking about how selling the house, then you sell the house. But, you know, sometimes I feel like the next person in gets nothing. I know that was the haunting in Connecticut. The next people that moved in, nothing. And I wonder if sometimes they're on a different vibration, or the vibration doesn't bother the spirits, or if the spirits just go dormant for a while and then decide when they're going to get back up.
I've got a story that might answer that or agree with that. While doing the Queen Mary, I said to the tour guide, there's a female that comes in this hallway. And the medium next to me said, no, there's a male that comes in this hallway. I said, no, absolutely, this is a female energy. And she said, absolutely, it's a male. And the tour guide said, actually, both a male and a female separately have been often seen in this hallway.
Huh.
So one of us is picking up on one level of energy, and the other one of us is picking up on the other. And yet I cannot even feel that male energy that she was picking up on. So the vibration is higher, lower, different. You know, it's like tuning into a radio station wherever that vibration is, they either, like you say, the next people do or do not upset the energy that's there.
May not resonate with it. All right. Well, do you have a different story for us with an entity that won't hang up?
Well, here's the weird one. And this is just the weirdest thing. We got a call from a house in Paris, California. Man had died in the house. His son asked a friend to move in and renovate it, live here for 6 months for free.
Okay.
So the guy moves in and gets a hold of us, and he says, I put some African masks up on the wall because I'm going to be here 6 months. And they were my dad's when he was in World War II. And I woke up, and there's a little 2-foot man with feathers coming out of his back, grabbing on the mask and trying to yank him off the wall. And when he saw that I saw him, he ran into the mirror. And I thought, you know, bartender, I'll have whatever he's having. Yeah, that is a heck of a story, because what am I dealing with? Is not a ghost.
Well, that's interesting, because elementals are a whole nother topic.
Okay. And so this is in the days when you could look up on Google and you could kind of filter it down better and better. So each time you went forward on Google, you could eliminate the stuff you didn't want. It was much more controllable.
Oh, okay.
And so I finally found 2 sites, and this is a good 10, 15 years ago, that had talked about a little 2-foot man with feathers coming out of his back and how that was an elemental. Exactly what you said.
Yeah.
So I guess this thing was threatening him, was saying he's going to pull a feather out and scratch him. The guy was waking up with scratches. And it turned out, after some research, that the African masks were cut from trees in the deep jungles of this area in Africa, and they're oiled. And the village that makes them believes they've trapped negative energies inside, and you must keep the wood oiled, otherwise it will dry and crack. And if it cracks, the negative energy will get out. So they sat in the guy's garage for, 25 plus years and dried out. And then he hung them on the wall, and they're all cracked and old. But hey, they belonged to Dad, and they were a memento. And so out comes this negative thing that's threatening him. And on top of that, he saw a man in the dining room, a ghost, hanging from the lamp, like a man had hung himself from the chandelier.
And he's seeing these things like they're like an apparition, like he's seeing them clearly.
Yeah, like with his eyes. He one night saw the man hanging. The next night, he saw a woman just below that on the ground, on her knees, looking up where the man had been hanging and crying. as if the two might be related, but they were separate, nights that he saw it. And then this little creature supposedly running around the house.
Okay, so hang on one second there. So this guy that's supposed to be fixing the house, he's seeing all these things play out, and he's seeing full body apparitions. But I want to go back to the elemental for a second. Did he think the guy with the feather was coming out of the mask, or did he think that was an elemental that was going, no, you got to get those masks down?
He saw the elemental come out of the mirror, crawl across the living room wall, grab the mask nailed onto the wall, tug on it, try and get it to let go of the wall. Then it wouldn't let go. Then the elemental saw the man staring at him, and he ran back across the wall and ran into the mirror.
Okay, so that was outside coming in to... Wow, that's interesting. I wonder if the thing was trying to... Well, it threatened him later.
Yeah, he woke up, and it was standing next to the couch staring at him, and it said to him, I'm going to grab a feather, and I'm going to scratch you. And the guy, of course, leaps off the couch. You're either going to think I'm going crazy, I had too much to drink, or what. Maybe I'm still dreaming. But when he scrambled up, like, am I dreaming this? The elemental ran away from him and ran up the wall and into this mirror. So I said, hey, how about we take the mirror out of the house for starters?
Right.
That may be a doorway or something. So we couldn't figure out, did the elemental get out of the wood? Was it a negative energy trapped in the wood and it wanted back in, or it wanted the mask for, a little hermit crab type of shell house, or take it with him? You're not going to be able to get it into the mirror, or maybe he could. But this is just bizarre. I didn't go to this person's house till I was on the phone with him for an hour and a half, making sure he was sane before I walk into a house after a story like that.
Well, I feel like, because I had a mirror like that, and Tommy had to come over and close it for me. Everybody kept saying, there's a little boy on the other side, and Courage wouldn't sleep in front of the mirror. So I do think they're portals. But also, I think that, I don't know, maybe the mirror was the way the elemental could actually come through into the third dimension, because I think elementals are really mostly protecting an area or a space or the earth. So if that elemental was like, hey, dude, those got to go. I'm going to scratch you if those don't go. That would be my vibe, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, you could be on the right path here, because the African village had told, in fact, the son had called his mom and said, what's going on with these masks? They were in the garage forever. And she gave him more of the background story and said, your dad was supposed to keep them oiled, but that's just what the village believes. Like, we can throw that out. Ha, ha, ha. Well, guess what? Maybe he was saying, these things are old and cracked and there's negative things inside here. They got to go,
Right.
And so we told the guy, it looks like you should be getting rid of these masks, or at least put them in some sort of a sealed container away from you. You may want to keep them because they belong to Dad, but they're not doing you any good. They're not decorative. They're definitely used. They're an item that's used for
that's
something.
Haunted. That's haunted.
In the village, they believe they trap the negative energies that come by into these little tree masks, and if that's their belief, it's come from somewhere, it doesn't mean it's wrong. And so, and then, of course, when I went to leave the house, that's when I got jumped again at that house, something negative. I was driving several members we had carpooled in my vehicle, and we were leaving the driveway, and something was telling me to speed the car and crash it to the right. Just crash the car. Just pull that wheel to the right. And I recognized this whole thought process is not me. These eyes are not me. So I slowed the car down, pulled over, stopped. Everyone's like, what are you doing? got out, shook it off, and told everyone what was going on and stuff, and was able to shake that one pretty easily. But I had to recognize what was going on.
Wow. That is, it's funny that, that's rule one that people don't know is get the person out of the location. So you knew to get yourself out into fresh air or something. The person that jumped you, did you think it was the elemental or hard to tell?
I could not tell. The goal, when the goal is to injure me and people around me, I put it over on the negative side and think, well, this isn't good. They're not telling me to take everyone to Disneyland or something. So,
right.
So I don't concern in those quick moments, it's not like who or why. It's like, what do I do now?
Right. Curiosity
immediately
is taken over by survivalism.
Yeah. So, thinking back about it, I would say it felt more like spirit energy. I don't know what elemental energy feels like. So I can't rule it out, but it did feel the same as when, the time before that. And then again, the time after that, some sort of persona,
Right.
That's not me. It's not my persona trying to take over and utilize the body, and so yeah, that was another creepy one.
That is pretty creepy. And, you're right. At the time that we started doing this, there was not the amount of information that was out there. And I think the only show on at that time was like Ghost Hunters, which is really just a strict paranormal, we're looking for ghosts kind of thing. It didn't expand out. And of course, if they did expand out to elementals and fairies in that sort of time, they would have been off the air because they would have been thought of as crazy. Right.
They had to have a very strict structure. And, it's amazing to think where we are and where it was just 14 years ago.
Right.
And it's not that long ago. What people advised, 14 years ago, everyone's go-to was put salt around your front door, around your house. If you got something negative in there, you've just trapped them inside.
Right. You got to get it out first.
Yeah. So,
which is funny.
A lot of people rush to use sage, but again, learning from Tommy, rather than using sage, you're going to want to understand what sage was historically used for.
Right.
And what it can do and not do for the situation.
Right.
And then, seek out, instead of sage, maybe cedar or something like that. So there's been a lot learned over the years. Do you have time for another crazy story?
I was just going to say, I absolutely do. Tell me one more story, and then we're going to tell everybody where they can see you.
Okay. At Redlands, California is a cemetery that during the 70s and 80s, a lot of teenage groups and other cult groups that were more prominent then did a lot of...
That's very funny that you bagged in a group of teenagers with occult groups. Just like it just goes without saying. There's bad things. If you see a lot of teenagers, there's bad things going on.
Well, anyway, there was a clan of people unrelated to each other, but several different groups that were doing satanic rituals in the cemetery in Redlands. And this is not folklore as much as it is sort of a known town secret. And it makes the cemetery is haunted, but it makes it dangerous on certain nights. For some reason, some nights more than other nights, these conjured up type of energies are more active. On other nights, you could swear they're not there.
You could sleep in it, yeah.
Yeah. But so we were walking through, a group of us one night, just kind of getting used to new equipment and trying to learn how to use the equipment and stuff, and putting out the feelers, being mediums, and are we sensing anything, any EVPs? And a guy in our group was struggling with, did he want to be in the group at all? He was feeling like it might go against his religious beliefs. So he was having a religious crisis in a sense. And that, I think, made him a little more vulnerable that evening.
I was just going to say, if you're having a religious crisis, don't go with ghost hunters to a cemetery where satanic ritual has been played.
Wait, let me write that down. That's good. Let me remember that.
Let's get that on a T-shirt. If you're having a religious crisis, don't go with ghost hunters to a cemetery that has had satanic activity. Okay.
I'll put that on my license plate.
Yes, okay.
So, maybe not a good idea, but there he was, and he was seeing things. He'd never been here before, and there's some places in there where things have happened before, and so he's seeing the things that I have seen happen before, but I'm not seeing them. He's saying, why are all these people lined up right here like it's a parade? And it's in a particular area where a slew of spirits, a crowd of spirits have been seen over and over again. Now, I wasn't visually seeing them, and I wasn't seeing them as a medium, but he picked up the energy that they are, commonly in this area. And then why over here are there two in a tree? And he picked up the energy, and this guy is not a medium at all, but that night he was. And I started getting little voices saying they are going to look for a moment to attack him, or if he's vulnerable, they're watching this guy. This guy's, got a glow, and they're watching him. I said, Tim, I think we ought to go and leave the cemetery. I think we ought to get you out of here. So as we're walking along, and this is one of those you had to be there, but this truly happened. As I'm looking to my right at him and having a conversation about we're almost out of the gate, just this way right here, about 10 feet beyond him on a flat grass area, I start seeing a white mist come up out of the ground like a cloud or one of those dry ice mist machines. Mm-hmm. And it's coming up pretty quickly, and it's going up, and it's growing, and he's talking, and I'm looking beyond him, and it's like 4 feet tall, 6 feet tall, 8 feet tall, and now it's growing arms. It's reshaping from a blob into a very tall mist with sort of shoulders and a neck. Never quite got human. Looked more like the abominable snowman, blobby. But definitely had arms. And this is 20 feet from the gate. And his K2 and millimeter start pegging and going haywire. And at this particular place, there's no lights there. There's no electrical system running. It's pitch black unless the moon is out. But everything starts going off, and he's slowing down and going, what is this? What is this? And I'm like, no, go. You need to go. You need to go. And I thought, I cannot. No one's going to believe this. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. And I don't want to point it out to him because maybe they're going to rush over and grab him. I don't know what this thing is, And so we got out of the cemetery, and I said, start saying your prayers. So he started saying prayers all the way back to the car. His equipment is going haywire and stuff. And he got to the car, and the equipment just stopped. And everything just shut down. And you could just feel like everything's dissipating. And I looked back, and that thing just went whoosh and just evaporated, just misted into nothing.
Wow.
And I thought, it's one of those, people are going to hear that and say, But
it happened. We've seen worse.
Yeah, and I actually had the joy of talking to someone that's in a different paranormal group that's a friend of mine. And I was sharing the story with them, and they went on and said, I've seen the same thing. They stopped me and they completed my story.
Wow.
Yeah. So there is some blobby mist being, and it was growing up so tall and so quickly. It was kind of like confrontational, you know?
Or that would be kind of what they thought of as ectoplasm at a different time, I think.
Yes. And this one had a form and a shape to it. I've never seen it where it actually had such a strong shape. You know, it was almost something manifesting is a good word.
Right.
You know, and I've had team members walk into clients' house and say, I just saw a ghost in that room. And I thought, darn it, why don't I ever see one, you know? But what would I do if I did?
I know. And you know what? That is the one thing that people need to, you got to know, you stay in this long enough. I know I have a couple of friends that are always say, I want to see something, or I want to see something negative, or I want to see, and I'm like, nope, I'll step aside. You have a good time. I'll step aside.
Right. Yeah. I'll commune with the deceased, former living. You know, that's okay. I can get their messages. I can give information about them, right. And they can talk on the EVPs and all that stuff. But if I were to see a little girl flit towards me, you know, it'd be like, what do you want?
Wow. Well, thank you, KD. This was fantastic. And yes, it has been too long before I got you on, but it sounds like just the perfect time because that was such a great podcast.
Yeah. Great stories.
So KD Forman, Cal-Para, and also ParaZona. Tell everyone where they can see you in October.
Oh, we're going to be speakers at the Vulture City Paracon in Phoenix Valley. It's about 45 minutes away from the Phoenix airport, and lots of really great people are going to be there. 13 abandoned buildings to investigate, and they're all in fairly good condition. It's like a little ghost town.
Great. And you know what, too? And you have some of my favorites there. You're going to have the Yates there. You're going to have Doug Carnahan there.
John
Zaffis. So that is great. So everybody look that up. KD, where can they find you on Instagram or Facebook, or if somebody wants to send you an email?
We are at calpara.org or parazona.org, either one. And then a good email is calpara.investigations@yahoo.
Terrific. And I will get those all in the show notes. Thanks, KD.
Thank you so much.
Psychic medium and buddy of mine, Terry Huberman, is with me today. Terry, you've given me so many great readings and healings, and now you've got everything together in one package. Tell me about that.
I sure do. So this package has energy healings, readings, and coaching.
Coaching, that's the best. And people, they buy the package. You give them coaching once a week?
Yeah, so we meet online once a week, and in between, there's support as well.
And who would this be for?
This is really for folks who are in indecision, needing to get into their intuition because they're blocked or stuck. They need to move forward. And so we explore what the root causes of the problems are.
And helps them get out of their own way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific. And what can they expect from this?
Sure. So moving from anxiousness to confidence, accessing their freedom, joy, and security, and really being in alignment with themselves so they have that clear direction, so they know, aha, this is what I need to do next to reach my goals.
So now there's something that's free so people can talk to you and see if this is for them.
Yeah, absolutely. On my website, terryhuberman.com, there is a page where you can click, and it's the intuitive coaching package. And there is a button there that says schedule a free call. So you go ahead, schedule it. We'll get on a call and you can learn more about this program, and we'll see if this is a good fit for you or not.
See if there's chemistry.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's an odd date.
TerryHuberman.com, TerrieHuberman. I highly recommend it, folks. Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. It is the weekend before I am at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club headlining in Las Vegas. Come out, see the show March 6th and 7th. You can see me in Bellingham, Washington. They only have one theater. That's the one I'm at. Other dates coming up. Oh, May 15th, I've been saying 16th, 15th in Miami doing the tarot show at a theater. Email me if you want details, and then I will email the booker to find out where the hell I am there. So great show today. Two things happening. The second and third part of the show, I'm speaking to KD Forman from Cal-Para. That is the team that I investigate with. But now the first half of the first third, it's the first third. I have gone to great lengths to write about synchronicities. And my friend Brian Kiley is here. Brian, say hello.
Hello.
Brian is a writer for the Conan O'Brien Show, what, 400 years?
400 years?
400 years.
I started 6 years before Conan, which is hard to do.
He was warming up.
He wasn't even there yet.
And
he was still writing for The Simpsons when I was writing for him.
That's right. You knew he was going to have a show because I was your psychic.
I had to prepare.
And I told you. And Brian, little to no interest in the paranormal, correct?
Zero.
So I think you'd be
I don't like the paranormal or the normal.
See why I invited him on? And so I invited you on, and here's what I thought you could comment on.
Sure.
So everybody, I did all this research on synchronicities, and I watched about 1,000, maybe I'm exaggerating, YouTube videos, because my listeners know I don't read because I'm dyslexic. So I watch it all, and I saw Deepak Chopra, and that'll put you to sleep. And then I came across this one by Tom Montauk. Okay. And let me just say, if anything brilliant is said at all in the next 20 minutes, you need to credit it to Tom Montauk, and you need to go see his stuff on YouTube because he's fascinating.
What if I said a brilliant idea? Montauk's going to get the credit.
That's right.
That doesn't seem fair.
Now you could say
I could have stumbled into something brilliant, and people are going to hey, that Montauk guy is something.
Well, we'll wait and see if you think of something.
All right. Well, just for that, I'm not going to say anything brilliant then.
Okay. I'll hold them back.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I just thought of one. Never mind.
Okay. So, what is a synchronicity? This is what I collected for information. Everybody liked Carl Jung's first. Okay. Carl Jung said, a strange coincidence you are meant to notice.
A strange coincidence you are meant to notice.
Or a meaningful coincidence.
A meaningful coincidence. Now, I think some people...
You have a problem with that already?
No, I love it. I think some people are more in tune to coincidences and notice coincidences, don't you think?
That's true. Or they write them up, or like I said something to someone and they were like, oh, that's interesting. And then I said it to April and she was like, meant to be. That's how I am. But this is where this gets interesting because people are always asking me about synchronicities, and I didn't even realize there were more than one. And this guy, Tom Montauk, we'll get started. How about that? We'll just get started.
Sure.
Now reality is reactive to consciousness, but
I'm sorry. I'm going to
go back on that.
Reality is reactive to
consciousness.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay.
But this is already not going well, is it?
No. I think it means something. I just...
Okay,
you're throwing out very deep concepts that you have to kind of ruminate on a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So you're like, E equals MC squared. Anyway, it's like, wait, what was that?
Who is E?
Let me, right.
Okay, so I think I can clear it up. So quantum physics say reality is shaped by consciousness and it is affected by the things that are metaphysical. And let me give that a shot. Okay?
Sure.
Here's what it is when you look at the matrix, okay, I'm going to try and explain this in a visual.
Okay.
So, which the more I read about the Matrix and stuff, the more I'm like, those Keanu Reeves movies were working on some really interesting information. So we all go through life. Everyone is just on the path they're supposed to be, which is think of a fabric that has the the fabric is woven and you see the threads going through.
Sure.
And they're all the same because everybody's doing the same thing and they're on their own. So when someone starts to notice the metaphysical, it's like one of those fabrics sticks out. Like, hey, what's going on here? Why am I supposed to be all on the same track? And it sort of goes off.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you are off that track and you are like that fabric that frays off to the side or sticks out.
Right. That's when you know you're shopping at Marshall's.
You know you're shopping at Marshall's, right? and not only are you shopping at Marshall's, but all the sort of powers outside the matrix look in and kind of go, wait, what's that?
Or they go 30% off.
30% off, yes. So that's sort of the matrix is you're supposed to be following orders or you're really not supposed to be at Ross. Okay.
Right.
Now you've drawn the attention to beings outside of our consciousness and our matrix. Okay. That's going to come up later in this podcast.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. So are we too deep?
Oh, this is very deep. I love it.
It's interesting. Okay.
I need a life preserver, but go ahead.
Okay. So right away, the first kind of synchronicity there is a precursor. And this shows up before. Mm-hmm. Okay. The upcoming event is a messy event. And it's a messy spot on your timeline, in your corner of reality. Okay, so in your fabric, in your matrix,
it's a little hint of what things to come.
Is that fair? Of what things to come.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Now, here's the thing: because it's on your timeline, and it could be so messy that it actually vibrates before, so you sort of get a synchronicity or a premonition. Okay, a really good example of this is before 9/11, for like 2 weeks before, therapists said their phones were ringing off the hook with clients they said they hadn't heard from in years, and everybody was like, all of a sudden I feel awful, what's going on? Like that event of 9/11 was so powerful and it had so much that it moved back on the timeline.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So when the future is unstable, you keep going back and forth with a decision, that's also when it can happen, right? When you can't get it, so you sort of get a precursor to it. It's when your future is unstable. So you're that fabric going through the woven thing and all of a sudden there's a seam. That's where your future is unstable. Okay. In quantum physics, they say normal reality is the most predictable. Okay. So in other words, that's why Google has you as a voodoo doll. They say that Google has a voodoo doll of you. And what it is it's a computer program that keeps running over and over and sees what Brian is looking at, what Brian is doing. And eventually the voodoo doll comes out with the same thing that you're like, oh, I need another blue shirt. The voodoo doll knew before.
Right.
So your brain is a computer that's very, very predictable.
Right. So Google's like, Kylie's a perv or whatever.
Whatever.
You know? Just for example. I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't use that one. But
so when you see that ad pop up for Porn Hut or
I'm like,
Foot Fetish, you know. So that is the most predictable. Stable.
It really should be feet fetish. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like someone just has a left foot fetish or something.
They
you know
might.
what I mean? Really?
They might.
Wow. Okay.
So that's easy. So it's like, that when the computer program is working great, these probabilities are very easy. Okay? When there's something gets messy on your timeline that it comes back at you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's a side effect of an upcoming instability. All right? So
okay.
You go, I knew that was going to happen. I had a dream, whatever.
Right. Wow.
Okay. Now the second type of syncs are called deviation syncs.
Okay.
Synchronicities.
Isn't that what you were talking about before with the thread going off on its own?
Yes. You suddenly deviate from your path. Uh-huh. And when you do this, that goes into what they call habits momentum or programming circumstances of feelings in that moment. Everything pushes you to your most mechanical way. Everything pushes you in the computer way. So when you go against the creative path, there is certain synchronicities that will pop up. Okay. That's when you will see 1111 all the time or something else when you've deviated from your path. Okay. Those come in clusters. Okay, one will lead to another.
Okay, so, all right, so let me try to figure this out. Sorry.
Okay.
This we might need to have this be a 4-hour podcast because it's a little bit over my head here. So,
And I have to move my microphone.
when something deviates,
When you deviate,
you're off your path. So then, explain to me about the numbers. Then you're going to see things.
Right. Okay. So what they're saying, this sort of improbability is when you say you go into work one day and you go, I quit my job. Right? What? You weren't even thinking of that yesterday, Brian. What happened? That is when you exercise free will, because you're out of that matrix, out of that fabric that tells us this is what Brian's doing every day. So at that point, you start to get more synchronicities from outside metaphysical or paranormal things. Okay, so that could be angels telling you 11:11. That could be anything. You could be thinking of a song you haven't heard in 20 years on the radio. Boom, it comes on. So those synchronicities are kind of to show you that other things are acknowledging that you have this free will. Most people can't do that.
Most people just stay on their path.
Most people just stay on the path. They don't want to know anything else. They want to go to work, go home, watch Netflix. They're done. When you do this, you sort of wake up the outside world and the occult. You're still that little fray that Ross sold you for less. Okay.
I can't believe I'm being sold for less.
The more you do this, the more you will attract those improbabilities. Or those synchronicities.
So, is it a good idea to get off the path? Is that what you're saying?
It's where you're really exercising free will, yes. It's also sort of the way that you become, then you're not part of the machine. Right? I mean, even religion makes us part of the machine.
Right.
It wants you to be on that
Stay in your lane,
do
blah,
this,
blah, blah.
stay in your lane. And I've never stayed in my lane.
Really?
That's why I'm rich.
Right, that's why you explains all those car accidents also.
Okay, hold on. Let's look at expansion synchronicities. All right, so expansion syncs are when someone goes through a significant growth or a spiritual growth quickly. So this could be a near-death experience. Okay? Changes everything. This is sort of in the Matrix. They use this on the red and blue pill thing.
I see.
Okay, so it's sort of, have you ever had someone that had this sort of experience and came back all woo-woo?
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, suppose some big event, like you go through some traumatic event. Is that going to cause something like this?
If you have a spiritual breakthrough through the event.
I see.
If you just have the event and you get depressed, probably not so much.
I see.
Okay. And they say that, this is Tom Montauk again.
Montauk.
He's too smart. He is too smart. These sometimes need a little more decoding. There could be like dreams or stuff that you don't understand. He actually used the example of tarot, which is the archetypes or that kind of thinking. You may have dreams about that stuff. But this is, again, when you're breaking away from that computer program you're supposed to be on. 1, 2, 3. You're supposed to go on this. Okay. So do you know what message syncs are, Brian?
I don't.
Okay. So message syncs are sent in forms of immediate improbabilities. Okay. Here's one. A meteorite. I just had this conversation twice today. Meteorite hit a rental car of mine once. Wow. That's an improbability.
Well, you were driving in the asteroid belt. I don't know how you got there. You got off. You really get off the road sometimes, off the main path. So you're driving and a meteorite hit you.
Yes. I know. That's weird.
Wow.
I know. And I think I mentioned it in the last podcast and then this one because we're doing this today. Are you yawning during my Synchronicity podcast?
I was trying to sync up my yawn with your yawn.
Okay. All right. So these are kind of, a lot of times they come across as omens. All right. They may be asleep or awake. They can be the reoccurring numbers again, or seeing an animal. Like if you see a penguin in California over and over.
So like in the old days, the Middle Ages, they'd see like a comet, or there'd be an eclipse. and they would take that as an omen. Do you know what I mean? Right?
Sure.
So is this similar to that?
Yeah, except I think we know about the eclipse and stuff now, so it's not quite
Right.
like an omen. This could be something through a dream. It could be...
What if if they had a comet went by, and then shortly after that, the movie The Omen came out? Do you know what I mean?
that could be...
That could have happened.
That seems like it needs a third thing
It needs a third thing?
to make it a good joke.
It just needs the funny part.
Or
Other than that.
then while you're at the omen, you get hit by a meteorite. There it is.
All right.
Okay. Now, these can be bad. So you need to know if they're misleading or if they're correct. Okay? So you really have to look inside and see what they are. These are also, sometimes when we have dreams, this is what Montauk describes as, when we have dreams, it's kind of harder to differentiate what's going on because, you know what, I'm going to skip this part because it's too confusing.
Oh, we finally got to something confusing?
Should I rehearse this podcast?
No, this
more?
is fantastic.
Okay, all right, hold on. Manifestation sinks. This is, I think are we on 5 or 6? I think we're on 5. Okay, this is what I do all the time. And this would be where, like, I think of one thing all the time and I obsess on it, and then it happens. Or then it comes up. Like, it could be like...
So you had a premonition about something.
Right. It's kind of like a premonition, yeah.
And you obsess on it, and then it actually happens.
Right. Because what happens with this is when you have it in you think about it so much, it's sent to your subconscious, and your subconscious manifests it in your reality.
Now, is this similar to creative visualization?
Kind of, yes. Yeah.
I see.
Actually, that's a great way to put it. So it is when you focus on something in a particular state of mind.
Did you hear that, Montauk? I put it in a very good way. As opposed to your dry dribble. Anyway, please, go ahead.
Okay, so manifestation sinks actually fit in very well with quantum physics. It says, if you influence the past to shape the present, okay, say a choice is made in the present that can reach back and influence the past.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
For this to happen, physical events that are needed to manifest to recreate the past. This is sort of a therapy thing, too.
Well, it is interesting that the past changes in a way. Well, I don't know if the past changes, but our perception of the past changes.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And there might be something that... and this happens with humor too, because there might be some joke that you thought was the funniest joke when you were 18 or something. And then when you hear that joke when you're older, you're like, oh, that has bad ramifications about a certain group or something. Now I'm uncomfortable with that joke because I've grown up. Now I'm woke. But when I was 18, I wasn't, and the world was different, and I thought it was funny then.
Well, also, to me, it seems like when people want to heal, and the therapist tells them to almost go back and visit that little girl or little boy, or I think it does.
Do you mean them as a little boy?
Right. What is that called?
The inner child or whatever?
Inner child, that kind of thing. And also, I believe in timelines. There's different timelines. So there's probably a timeline where this podcast is very interesting. And then there's the one we're on. And but the two timelines are very different. Like, I have a theory about Trump. I think there's a timeline where he's an honest, good president, and there's the timeline where he's not. And I think the two timelines have crossed, which is why people can't they're confused. How can those people think he's so great and we think he's so awful? Because the timelines have crossed. That's just my theory.
That's interesting.
But this one happens a lot. I think a manifestation one. It's like, I was just thinking about you when you called me.
Right.
Right.
My inner child was sent to reform school recently. Okay. All right. So
that one makes sense.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
And what's next?
Next is artificial sinks. All right. These are staged for the purpose of deception. Okay. So these could be ploys or negative. And this is when you get a little bit deeper into the sort of paranormal. This could be darker entities. It could be curses. It could be demons or psychic vampires. It's where you have to listen to your intuition and go, because you can't just go to all these and go, oh, the clock said 11:11. I've got to go do that. Like, you have to listen and be able to spot these. These would be artificial ones where someone was trying to lead you down the wrong path.
All right. So what are those called?
Artificial
syncs.
Synchronicities. Yeah.
I see. And they're a trick of some kind?
They're a trick of the dark netherworld.
So,
not the Netherlands, the dark netherworld.
Right. So something seems appealing, but it's actually bad for you or something. Is that the idea?
Right. You go, well, I don't feel right about this, but I saw 12 penguins and that's my,
Right.
But you don't feel good about it, so you got to let it go.
So you have to trust your gut. Is that the idea?
Right. Because these sort of play into your ego. So they might be like, well, 3 people told me I looked great in this coat, and you don't. It's probably more deeper than a coat.
Right, I see. Okay.
So then the last one, I think we're on 10 or 50. It seems like a lot. Okay, an opportunity sink. All right. This is one that is made by our own higher self. It is an opportunity to advance ourselves in life, and it is some kind, it doesn't fit, and sometimes it's called serendipitous. Okay. These are lucky breaks. This is when the meteorite didn't kill the comic next to me. Okay. Lucky break. These are almost good, and they always bring a sense of relief and enthusiasm. They're sort of setting your life on the right path.
I see. And what are these called?
These are called opportunity
synchronicities.
Okay. So here are the questions that Tom Montag says you should ask yourself when you see a synchronicity. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oops. My whole paper went. What's going on? This is what you would call an artificial sync, where my pages start going all over as though I'm not supposed to read this. Okay. When encountering a sync, a precursor to something comes up. Did I just do an improbability? In other words, did you cause it? Did you go off on a crazy path somewhere else? Did you cause that synchronicity? Make sense?
Okay.
Well, okay, so the first sync is a precursor, and you say to yourself, is something coming up?
Right.
Okay. Second one is, did I just do an improbability? Did I just throw Google's voodoo doll off? Did I do
something to cause this?
Right. Did I run out and do something out of character? Out of character.
Right. Okay.
Perfect. Then the other question, did I manifest this earlier? Have I been thinking so much about
is this like a self-fulfilling prophecy or something like that?
Well, or am I thinking so much about Omar Sharif that I turn on the Omar Sharif?
Him.
Yes, he's at my house film festival. Okay. Is it a sign or an omen? Okay. Is this good or bad? If intentional message is to take me down the wrong path, or do I feel relief? Okay. That's your lucky strike, right? Your not your artificial sync, your opportunity sync. Do I feel better now that I've seen that? Okay. And if you don't get synchronicities, it just means you're on a path of probability. Okay. So in other words, if you are doing the same thing every day without any change at all, you're probably not going to see synchronicities. But if you one day get up and you say, hey, I want to write a novel. By the way, Brian, have you ever written a novel?
Well, talk about synchronicity. I have actually.
Why don't you tell everybody about the novel you wrote? This is a perfect. How weird that came up.
My first novel is called The Astounding Misadventures of Rory Collins.
Okay, and the second
is called Maybe Kevin, and they're available on Amazon.
Yes, and they're very good and they're very funny. And
Thank you.
Kevin made a lot of people cry. In a good way.
That's true.
That's true.
So if you want to cry, come to me. And even just go to my stand-up shows. Then people leave in tears. It's strange.
Right. So if you're not, so the one day you get up and go, I'm going to write a novel, and you had never done that before, and all of a sudden you're seeing synchronicities everywhere. That is sort of you know how to take that. You know how to look at that.
Right.
Okay. If you're not getting a lot of synchronicities, you should just get in touch with your higher self and see if you can correct anything.
If you're not getting a lot, is it that you're not in tune to them, or you're not?
You're on that matrix plan. You're following. You're still in character.
I see.
You haven't gone outside at all.
I see.
Okay.
You haven't thought outside the bun.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you want to bring in more synchronicities, you are to get rid of your skepticism. Just be okay with it.
So be open to them.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And like I said, that in the beginning, when I'm talking about the matrix, when you're on your fabric, when you're never thinking differently, that's why I love art so much, because art opens your mind to think differently. Humor opens your mind to think differently.
Right.
Religion does not. Spirituality does.
Interesting.
Not that religion is bad.
Right,
Some of it is good. But that's it. So how did we do?
I became enlightened.
All right.
I'm like the Montauk of my neighborhood.
All right, everyone. So any place that the people can see you coming up? Are you out on the road?
Well, we're in February, right?
Right.
I'm actually going to be doing a show in Fort Lauderdale on the 22nd of February.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Go see him in 2 days.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll have some synchronicity jokes.
Oh, my God. That would be fantastic. Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Brian Kiley.
Sure.
BrianKiley.com. What is your Instagram or your Twitter?
My Twitter is @KylieNoodles.
@KylieNoodles.
I'm so close to 10,000 followers.
Follow Brian. He's really funny.
Yes, I'm on the brink.
So everybody, thanks for listening. If you can leave me a 5-star review wherever you listen, that would be great. I will see you guys in March. I think it's the 6th and 7th. It's Friday and Saturday in Bellingham, Washington. I can't wait for that. Watch for more dates. February 24 through, I think, March 3rd, I will be headlining Brad Garrett's Club in Las Vegas. And thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media doing all the magic with the producing. And thanks, everybody. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.